really looking forward to having him come along to Agile Yorkshire. It's great to have him here. He's definitely has a world of wisdom, and I will hand over to him to finish off his introduction. I'm sure there's loads more going on than I know about, but please, he's come up from Leicester today. It's great to have him. Please give him a warm introduction.
That was a bloody nice introduction. Okay, so yeah, I'm Vernon. I'm going to talk about this. How we're setting up QEs to fail. QEs is quality engineers. It's the new fancy title for testers. It's absolutely wonderful. And what I think we can do about it. So I'm just going to get straight on with it. Please, clicky, don't embarrass me in front of my friends. Excellent. So this is a company that I used to work for back in the day called Empire Interactive. We're talking about 2003-ish. And they made video games. So my first job in the tech industry was testing video games. Job. Excellent. So we acquired, so we were a very small company, and we acquired a license for this game. This game is Bad Boys 2. Miami Takedown. So I was testing this somewhere like 2003, and we were super duper excited. So just a quick tangent before I get back to the actual presentation. To illustrate how small we were, what we did is we got this license, very excited. We're going to make Bad Boys 2 the game. Incredible. Except the license we got did not allow us to use any likenesses of any stars in the film. So what do you do when you're making a game that stars very handsome black dudes? And you have a very handsome black dude in your test team. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That's me as Will Smith in Bad Boys 2. I call myself Vil Schmidt as a kind of moniker for this guy. But interesting tangent on the tangent is I was supposed to be Martin Lawrence, because there was another handsome black dude in the test team whose name was Phil Will, and he actually looked like Will Smith. So when they actually saw him in the game, they were like, no chance. We need to swap them around. So I got an upgrade, which was absolutely fantastic. I ended up as Will Smith, and Martin Lawrence ended up being Phil Will. So that was terrible. So I'm testing this game with all my pals, and we're getting absolutely fed up, because one of the things that we discovered in this game is that the controls were not that good. So this is a third-person shooting game. And there were other third-person shooting games around at the time that were way more popular, much better, and our controls were different to those games. So because we were all avid gamers, we were saying to the people at the food chain, look, this control system is absolutely, it's not going to work, it's terrible. It works. So the buttons that you've said, shoot, they do shoot, but they're configured incorrectly. No one's used to that. They're going to have to learn a whole new system for our terrible game. We're stacking up the difficulty for people trying to convince them to buy this game. So we're reporting this stuff, but they didn't want to know about any of this information. And as I reflected back, I think that was my first encounter with things like glue work, with things like quiet quitting, and with things like, quality engineering. So I'm going to expound on these ideas as we go through this presentation. But just to prove how terrible this game was, we got reviews of 35 out of 100. The best one is 43 out of 100, ladies and gentlemen, 43%. And generally unfavourable reviews on all platforms is basically what the situation was. So that's my claim to fame. So we kind of felt vindicated, but it's like a Pyrrhic victory. It's like, yay, we were right, our game is terrible, yay. So, the first thing that I ran into was glue work in that situation. So I learned about glue work from a friend of mine I was working with at the time called Cassandra, and she sent me a talk by a lady called Tanya Riley. And Tanya was talking about glue work. And glue work is that work that it kind of falls outside of somebody's explicit job definition. But if it doesn't happen, good luck. Things start to kind of fail and fall apart as time goes on because this stuff isn't happening. So Tanya gave some really great examples in her talk, and I've completely plagiarised them utterly. So one of them is noticing when other people in the team are blocked and going to help them out. So maybe you can see somebody struggling to get some test data, and they're trying they're trying to jump through all the hoops and ask and beg and plead and steal, and they're getting nowhere. So you stop what you're doing to go and help them. Glue work. Reviewing design documents and noticing what's being hand-waved or inconsistent. This is one that I'm particularly sensitive to. When things don't make sense, and you can hear the tells in the conversation in your refinement sessions. Does everyone understand what's going on? Yeah, everyone cool? Yeah, mate, yeah, totally get it, yeah. No, you don't. You don't get it. So that's and calling that out and trying to bring some clarity to that could be glue work, because no one else is doing it.
It made sense to product.
Yes. Have you been subjected? Okay. Some painful smiles at the front. Okay. Onboarding new teammates and helping them be more productive more quickly. That's glue work. No one's really assigned to that task. Improving processes to make customers happy. The people that basically pay our bills. Somebody reports an issue from production, raises a ticket, and it gets ignored, and it gets ignored, and it gets ignored, and it gets ignored. And it happens to be, one of your biggest customers. That's an issue. You want to jump on that. What's the process for handling that? And so this is how I think of glue work. It's the kind of work that holds the team together. If it doesn't happen, the team starts to fall apart, the goals become much more difficult to achieve, and everything gets worse. But Tanya has an even better description, which we'll come back to. Glue work is technical leadership. Remember that, because we're going to talk about that again a bit later on. So glue work is technical leadership. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about is quiet quitting. So in my games testing story, I definitely quiet quit, because I was fed up of reporting problems and them being ignored. Now, what was going on there? Now, the definition of quiet quitting, where's my phone? I got this from a BBC article, so it must be true. So the definition of quiet quitting is, it means doing only what your job demands and nothing more. Quitting doing anything extra, you still show up for work, but you stay strictly within the boundaries of your job requirements. So no more helping out with additional tasks, checking emails outside of work hours, etc., etc., etc. So that's how I felt. I felt like, well, why am I even doing all this research on all these other games to bring the information back to you? I'm trying to help us sell this game. And you're like, no, Vern, I just need you to look for bugs. I'm like, it doesn't matter if we've got no bugs if the game is sucky beyond all possible recognition. Okay? And so a friend of mine, Jenna Charlton, talks about this, and they describe it as protecting your boundaries. So this is you. And this is the boundary that you impose around yourself to make sure that, you know what, if I'm not going to get any recognition or reward for doing all this glue work, doing all this extra stuff, I'm just going to stop doing it. What's the point? It's actually getting me in trouble doing this glue work, and I'm not getting any recognition for it. So you know what? You want me to be a tester? That's exactly what I'm going to do. So what does that look like when you're a tester? So this is the famous image from Dan Ashby. You may or may not have seen this before. He talks about what is testing in the DevOps context. He also happens to be my boss. So if you can look very happy when the pictures are being taken while this is on screen, that would be awesome. So he talks about here, well, where does the testing happen these days? So the testing happens every bloody where. So when you're quiet quitting as a tester, what it means is you just stop. You just go, you know what, I've had enough of this crap. I am just going to stick to interacting with the product to look for problems. That's all I'm going to do. All the other stuff is in the bin, because I'm not getting any recognition or reward for that. Now, that's quiet quitting. Now we come to what is quality engineering. So there are different ways of looking at what quality engineering is. One way you might look at this is as a context-driven tester. So this is a diagram from James Back and Michael Bolton. And they have all these different flavors and aspects to what testing is. So it could be anything. It could be, so we've got testing at the core of it, like checking objective facts about a thing. Pass, fail, true, false, 0, 1. Awesome. But there's all this other stuff that you have to do to enable this or leverage this. So there's stuff like you could do things like, I don't know, play around with the product. You could help recruiters find new testers. You could find some oracles, some mechanisms to even determine what a problem is, and so on and so on and so on. All of this stuff is testing, not just the I'm going to interact with the product by learning about it, okay? So that's one way you could look at it. Another way you could look at it, quality engineering, is the modern testing principles by some chaps called Alan Page and Brent Jensen. They have a very entertaining podcast that I recommend you all listen to. And they have these 7 principles. And they like to joke that the modern testing principles are A, not all that modern, and B, not really about testing. But they have things in here such as principle number 1 is our priority is improving the business. It's not much about testing there. Another one that I like is this one. We are a force for continuous improvement, helping the team adapt, optimize in order to succeed, rather than providing a safety net to catch failures. And so on and so on and so on. So this is around being broader than I'm looking for bugs. And another example that I found is by another pal of mine called Stuart Day, from his presentation, What is Quality Engineering? He also has the wonderful infinity thing. So on this side, what he describes is this DevOps loop is, there's a lot of tools involved in DevOps, a lot of tools. And so what he likes to focus on the quality engineering side is continuous quality, continuous testing, and the culture piece, the behaviors, the interactions between the humans, not just the tools. So that's what quality engineering is. So why is all of that important? It's important because, are there even any testers or people who've been testers in the room, in fact? Just me? Big man at the back. Yes, legends. Okay, so what happens when you're doing testing for any amount of time is usually, or this was my experience at least, is that you'll be testing and you'll say to yourself, man, this would be easier if I could make some test data myself. Or you might say, you know, this testing would be easier if these requirements made more sense. Who's making these? Who's coming up with these user stories? They're trash. I'm going to go and help them with that. Or do you know this? We can't actually test this in test. We need to do it in production. Like, how do we even do that? Let me go and talk to these folks over here. So before too long, you're not just, weasel word, just testing in production, testing, interacting with the product, looking for bugs. You're trying to leverage the testing. You're trying to move the testing out of there and say, well, can we do it earlier? Can we make it more effective? Is this the only time we can do it? Can we do it in production? What does that look like? But you get beat down because no one wants you to do that, because now you're doing glue work. So I'm going to try and tie all this together. Now, whether or not you're a tester or not, when I shared these examples, I'm pretty sure, in your heads at least, you were doing this. That's me. I do all of that stuff, and none of that stuff has got in my job title at all, because that was me. When I read these examples, I was like, yes, I do that. Yes, I do that. Yes, I do that. Yes, I do that. So, when we have these examples of glue work, if we're saying that testers now do all the things all over the place in the project, glue work is quality engineering. But if glue work is quality engineering, that means it's technical leadership. But the problem is, we don't get positioned as technical leaders, as a tester. No one says, here's the issue, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but the issue is we're not positioned properly within the teams when we join them. We're not positioned properly in the teams. The expectations are not set. So as I join the team as a tester and I'm trying to, figure out how to burst into these refinement sessions that I've been excluded from, I have to burst in. I have to actually fight my way in instead of being invited in. That's part of the problem. We'll come to it. So this is a great quote. So this is Marat Pahayavi quoting Anna Baik. And I love this quote. It is absolutely fantastic. So it says, as testers, we are often expected to not only do our work, but to fix our organization to be able to do the work. I've got to fix the organisation in order to do the goddamn work. That's glue work. That is glue. And I can see some painful knowing smiles because I think you all resonate with this bottom part. I've got to fix my organisation in order to do my job. And that's the issue. It's a positioning issue. So you got the glue work, you got the quiet quitting, which is, you know what, I'm not getting any reward. It's not worth my while doing all the extra stuff. So I'm just going to stop. I'm just going to look for bugs only and nothing else. But that's a problem because we just said that the modern day tester or the modern day quality engineer, this is their job. Like all of this is their job. So if you stop doing that, that presents a bit of a problem. Probably don't want to do that. So there are some good suggestions in this book by Ronald Cummins-Jong and Oase Peer. It's a book called Leading Quality, very short book. And they have a few bits of advice in there. It's things like learning how to tell the quality narrative in your company. And there are a few different kinds of quality narrative. There's one quality narrative around things like, well, what does the culture in this organization care about? So sometimes it'll be a narrative around how we test. Another narrative might be around what we test. So learn how to tell a better quality narrative is one solution. And another thing that you can learn to do as a tester or anyone else who's facing this problem is a bit of sales and marketing. A bit of sales and marketing. What this process basically describes is how to position yourself differently than you are right now so you can set the proper expectations with the teams that you are joining. And why I say sales and marketing, what I've discovered is it's not quite as icky as I personally thought it was. It's if you do it right, or if you do it the way that I've learned, it's really actually focused on the customer. So you know the old adage around nobody wants a drill, they want a hole in the wall. I am guilty of when I'm talking about testing is basically going, okay, look, this drill is absolutely fantastic. It's made out of titanium. It's super light. It's got these titanium drill bits. It's got diamond on the end. It's got 10,000 gajillion revolutions per minute. Do you want the drill? And you're like, I actually just want a hole in the wall, man. I don't care about the drill. I don't care how I get the hole. I just need a hole. I'm not asking any questions about the hole. I'm not asking why do you want the hole? How big do you want the hole? When do you want the hole? What are we putting the hole in? There's none of that stuff. I'm just talking about the goddamn drill. That's what I'm talking about. So if we learn sales and positioning, we can start to talk about what is the value that we're trying to provide, what problems do the people have that we're trying to convince, and then we can position ourselves differently in order to get a different response. Okay. But those two things are very much around the individual contributor. I think this is actually a leadership problem. So as you're bringing people into your team, and I'm talking about testers, but it doesn't have to be just testers. When you're bringing testers or anyone into your team, you need to be mindful of a few things. So one of the things you need to be is very clear about what is the goal. Or rather, what is the measure of success in your role? Is it to find as many bugs as possible? Or is it to get the product shipped as quickly as possible to the right people with as few problems as possible? Because that will influence how people go about their role. And that can be quite an important thing to do. So set the appropriate descriptions and measures of success. Another thing you need to do, or may need to do as a leader, is provide air support, some air cover. You're going to be in conversations that your individual contributor, your direct report, is not going to be in. So you need to set the expectations. Expect Vernon to be, the first word I thought was meddling, but that's not helpful. Expect Vernon to show up in conversations where you ordinarily wouldn't expect a tester to show up. So he's going to want to know about the architecture. He's going to want to know about how we are deciding what feature to implement next. He wants to know that because that informs the work that he does when it comes to actually testing. Instead of asking or finagling or sneaking into these conversations or forcing your way in, set the expectation with your peers at your level that these testers are going to be having these conversations. Invite them, because I'm telling them to go. That's something you could do there. And then the other thing you should do is, they're going to need support. I was chatting with my pal Aaron, I haven't seen him for a long time. And something I've seen in a lot of organisations is you get told, we're all autonomous now, good day. What the hell does that mean? Like, what am I allowed to do? Does that mean I've got a company credit card? Can I get that Ferrari that I was after now? Is that right? To get me to work quicker and I can spend more hours? No. Like, you need to have one-to-ones with your people so that you can give them support, get them directionally correct, coach them, help them solve their own problems, course correct if needed. Don't just set them off into the wild with no support, no guidance, no help, because everybody needs it. It doesn't matter what level in the organisation. You need some kind of support somehow. Okay, so glue work equals technical leadership, and quiet quitting, in my opinion, is caused by a failure of leadership, and quality engineering, expert testing, modern testing, I don't care what you call it, is absolutely glue work, and that means it's a technical leadership role. It 100% is a technical leadership role. So if you're an individual contributor, focus on the quality narrative, figure out what the growth metric is for your company so that you can describe your work in terms of the growth metric instead of talking about how many defects you found, because that's not helpful. But really, this is a leadership issue. So I need you to position these roles and these people and set expectations with your peers. And by the way, individual contributors, you need to do the same. Give your people a clear mission and clear targets and clear goals. Provide air support and have those regular and consistent one-to-ones so that you can course correct and give people coaching and support as appropriate, because the job is hard. We've got to fix the organisation in order to even do our job in the first place. It is exhausting. Oh my God. So support would be wonderful. And I think that is it. Oh, I had this motivational bit in the end. So you are all technical leaders if you're in this room. So you need to kind of got to try and like embody it a bit and carry yourself, like don't ask. It's easy, maybe it's easy for me to say, I don't know, but like try not to ask, try and just expect to get what you want and just carry yourself in terms of, well, I'm not asking, would you mind if, carry yourself as, put it this way, if I'm a tester and I show up in a product-centric conversation, I'm like, what's the deal with these user stories? They're not very good. Like, why are we doing it like this? Why are we doing it like that? I might get some pushback. If I'm the same person saying the same things in the same session, but my job title is engineering manager, or if my job title is VP of X, or if my job title is director of X, no one's questioning why I'm there. And so that's what I mean. Like, almost like go into that conversation as if you're already wherever in the food chain and see what happens. And I think that is actually it. Yes, thank God. I'm done. Any questions?
One thing I would say is, so having worked with lots and lots of teams, one of the ingredients for having a really good team is a really good set of testers.
I'll give you that 10 quid later.
That are working really well with the team.
But who is working with testers that either do this? So who's working with testers that do this? Who's working with testers who don't do this? See, they're mixed, you see, because some testers will see this and see this is not new. Oh, duh, really? It's really like I get really polarized responses when I show this to some people, because some people are fortunate enough to work in really collaborative, engaging, welcoming. They want the feedback. Hey, tester, you've been in 1,000,001 meetings and we haven't heard anything from you. Can you please, I want to know what you think. Awesome. So it doesn't surprise me that a few hands went up to say, oh, our testers already do that. Because if you're here on a Wednesday evening when the sun is shining in the UK, you are keen. Yes.
The organisation I currently work in doesn't have testers because the engineers just do it, and I hate it so badly. And you probably could hate it with me. That's cool. But what I'd be really curious is like I keep trying to have the conversation about that quality of. Look, I am on the product side, so for me, I don't want to ship stuff that's an absolute shit show, frankly, right? Like I want it to look good, work well, not have a load of bugs. And the business is like an agreement of that, but they are adamant that the engineers can do it. And I mean, engineers are great at coding, but they just don't have the same mindset, in my perspective, as a tester would do. And I just don't know if you have any like thoughts on how I can just really drive that home, besides just trying to release the flakiest thing ever to teach them all the lesson. I've been debating it. Options, but you know.
Jokes aside, that is actually an option. Like, let people feel the pain. Like, you know what, we're going to fail. And you can just put your seatbelt on. And just let everyone else experience that. So that is an actual, it's painful and it's risky because obviously your personal success is tied up in that, so that's risky. But what I like to do is almost like, it's similar to the first talk in a way. Like, what problem are we trying to solve? Like, get clear on that. Like, why don't we have any testers? Okay, what problem are we trying to solve? And then once you're clear on that, the next step becomes easier to deduce. I don't think it's necessarily bad to not have any testers, because what we're focused on is the activity, not the role. So I am not the Black Richard Branson, which means I don't have a chef in my house, but there is still cooking that occurs. Like, cooking still happens. I don't have a chef. It's that kind of thing. So then the question is, well, how good is this testing? Right? And what do you test? What do you, the engineers, care about? So it's almost the art of talking about testing without talking about testing. So if you frame what you want in terms of what they want, that could be helpful. So they probably don't like emergencies in production where they have to drop everything. So you could start measuring that and just say, hey, everyone, we have a lot of problems in production and you're constantly context switching whenever these happen. What do you think we should do about this? And let them kind of tell you. And you can have your ideas in your back pocket and you can just sprinkle them in as and when. But you don't have to, it's like, the personal example I like, which has got nothing to do with software testing, is I don't hang out in Leeds very much. So if I was like, I want to go and eat somewhere in Leeds, please somebody take me out to eat in Leeds. And you were like, hey, I know the perfect place. It does the best bacon butties that you've ever seen in your life. I am vegan. So that's not going to work for me. And then, or you could say, oh, we could go to this other place where, you know, they do this amazing pasta where they put all this, you know, amazing cooking wine on it and all the rest of it. It's like, well, I am Muslim, so I can't drink anything. So this is, all I'm trying to say is the context is important. So if this place has this wonderful tofu curry that you hate, but also has some incredible bacon butties which you love, you just say, hey, Vernon, I know the best place. Got some amazing tofu curry. I'm like, yeah, let's go. But you're like, I'm going for the bacon butty, man. But I don't need to talk to him about that. So likewise, most engineers I speak to, like I say, they don't like rework. They don't like getting disturbed. They don't like getting interrupted. Context switching. These are kind of cliches, but there are things that they care about that if we had less bugs, their lives would get better. They would get either more or less of that thing that they care about. And that's what I would try. Did that help?
Thanks, yeah.
Sick. Any more for any more?
I've got a question. So lots of the things that I think you've described there in test teams, I think I completely agree with everything you said. But I would say, do you think it also exists quite often in at least some of the engineers in engineering teams?
Oh yeah, hell yeah. Like, I was just being selfish because I'm a tester. I was talking about testers. But so, because testers absolutely have a marketing problem.
Yeah.
100% have a marketing problem. And the term is overloaded. It's like Smurf. It means everything to all, like, it means anything. So so what I'm trying to do is surface that problem to people who are not testers. Because testers, by and large, already feel the pain and kind of get it. But it's everybody else that may not get it. So I'm trying to share this perspective with you all, with the hopes that you can take that into your teams. And if you're working with testers who aren't doing this stuff, then you can point them to some of the resources and ideas that I shared here. I'll do my damnedest to get the slides into the meetup group somehow. Or you can share this with, like I said, engineering managers, staff engineers, VPs, engineering directors of, coaches, whoever. People who are not testing specialists, people who don't have that expertise in testing. But like I said, the glue work talk, which I advise you to go and look for, Tanya Riley, she was talking about it from the perspective of an engineer. She's a next level engineer, so that's where she was talking about it from that perspective. So everybody deals with this issue. I'm just focusing on testers. Yes?
Do you find that you get the respect the same that the software engineers and developers get, or do you see that you find yourself as a second class role sometimes? Because when I started a career, I thought that testers would fail developers. That's what my young arrogant self was. If you could do your code, and if you couldn't, you tested. And I got my first job was into a test team, and I wanted to get out there because I was a developer.
Yeah.
And it was like everyone in the test team wanted to be a developer. And do you find that, has that changed that culture? Do you have the respect now as a profession, do you think, or do you have to fight for that every time you go somewhere?
It's the classic lame answer of it depends. I've definitely seen that. I've definitely been subject to that. But this is the thing. So I don't want to position this as testers need all the help and we're just completely helpless and this is nothing to do with us. So there's things that we can do, that we can take on and that we can do. But yeah, I've definitely seen that attitude. On the leadership side, we talked about that. As an individual in that role, there's things that you can do to almost like build trust with your team or build credibility with your team and kind of win them over. That's not super duper short, but it is worth doing because it's for me it's you can't expect everyone to just drop everything that they're doing and focus on you because they also have their own success measures. They've also got roles they're trying to deliver. So you can just be helpful. That's what I try to do when I join a team. I try and be helpful. I try and speak to what I was just saying just now. I try and frame the things that I care about in terms of things that they care about. And I'll try and pair it with them. If they don't like testing, then I'll pair it with them and say, hey, let's try and make this easier for you. So you spend less time doing it, you spend more time doing the thing that you love doing, whatever that is. But it's definitely an attitude that I've seen out there. You see it on LinkedIn a lot these days. This year I've seen a lot of it for some reason, I actually don't know why. You know, people, a classic one is testers need to be technical. And technical actually means coding. And technical and coding are not synonymous. They are not the same. That's one. And then you must automate all the testing. That doesn't make sense to me. So there's all these different attitudes and opinions that we can, but instead of just me saying, you are wrong, that's not how you win friends and influence people. You just get curious. Like, oh, how did you arrive at that conclusion? Like, what did you experience? What have you seen that's got you to this conclusion, and offer people different perspectives. That's where you start to use coaching. You get curious. You assume that they're awesome, and you listen. And then you ask open questions. You know, when I started, we were quite combative with developers. What kind of moron would not fix? You know, that's very alienating. That doesn't build. Now it's like, I'm trying to make you look as awesome as possible. I want people to be singing your praises when we release this thing. That's a completely different mindset. And it's trying to figure out, like, if a product is released with bugs, and I did a very diligent job of looking, so no one's blaming me, they're blaming you, I didn't win. Do you know what I mean? It's that, like, what is the victory condition for all of us? Like, we win together and we lose together. So even starting that conversation was what I like to do when I join a team. It's like, how do we even know that we won? I'm gonna stop talking now, goddamn. It's getting hot in this room. Need to get some drinks. People need to leave. Thank you for listening, I appreciate it.